Welcome to the chaos.
There it is. I literally almost felt bad.
I know. We really gotta get better at that. Our coordination isn't
It's about
that
to be
good.
some domino, just everything falls.
Everything falls down. I don't think.
And that's our show, folks.
See you next time on the Chaos, guys. Peace.
Yay! Nice having you.
What up, everybody, and welcome back to the Chaos. I'm your host, Mikey Tailman, alongside my co-host
Danny J. Gomez.
I love how every time you do that differently. It's fucking great.
I got it. It's like, become my thing, I guess.
I mean, we gotta go back and like pick one, and like eventually you gotta stick to it.
Okay. No, I like what's his name? Dak. Armchair expert.
Yes.
He's always like Monica Paddleman. When he introduces Monica. Anyways, you got real podcasters know what I'm talking about. Dak, we love you. Come on the show. Anyways, we got Stuart here.
You done? I was waiting. From the show, everyone is doing great. Stuart Lafferty. What up, Stewie?
What up, Mikey?
No, Stu does a lot of things. Stu's been a writer for a long time. He's written some really cool content, short stories. But what I'm most proud of this human being for is he has championed his sobriety, and he is a huge advocate of people dealing with addiction and working on it. And he does a lot of help in that area, and he speaks with a lot of people. It's just been great to see, you being able to help yourself out and pick yourself back up, because now you're killing it, bro, and I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
I wanted to start the show off that way. I was a little bit nervous because I haven't told him that in a while, but I love the guy. I'm extremely grateful for him on a lot of different fronts that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
Appreciate
Steve,
that.
tell everybody about yourself a little bit.
I am 35 years old, and I'm half Mexican.
Mom, dad.
Mom.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. My mom's maiden name is Escarcega, so.
Ooh, I like
Yeah.
that. That's a good name.
But I guess in the vein of your show, I'll tell kind of like my story coming to LA. I moved here like right after high school, like 2 weeks after high school, when I was still 17. But I had already been like auditioning and acting because my brother at that time was on a TV show called One Tree Hill as an actor, and so I was able to do an episode of that when I was in high school. And that gave me the confidence to move to LA and pursue it, full time. I was going to community college, and then I got pretty lucky and booked a studio movie that went to theaters and kind of, I guess, gave me like, I wouldn't say like a false sense of like a false confidence, but definitely gave me like, I don't know, at that time.
Bro,
like,
but you didn't just book a show. You booked the lead in the show next to somebody that we're all six people removed from
yeah.
In the movie, right?
in the movie.
And yeah, I mean, it was a big deal, but like,
Bro, it's a pretty big deal.
But back then, if you did like a studio movie, you were like part of this club, So like, it was a movie that went to theaters, and you couldn't go out for TV anymore. So you made like I made a little bit of money, and then for the next few years, I was on this like, I guess like part of this cool kids club where I was going up against like Channing Tatum and like everyone at that time that was, a major like movie star, or they were like on the cusp of being movie stars. And I wasn't really like ripped like Channing Tatum, and I didn't have like the super nerdy look. And so I was kind of just like pigeonholed in this like,
But you had actual acting skills, which
yeah, I was a good actor.
You think what would help at that point? But
Yeah.
You think it would help?
I did. But no, it didn't. No, I mean it's a hard game. Like acting, obviously the industry, like all of the, arts are difficult, and I was also kind of pretentious in that like I only wanted to do like independent films. So it was kind of like this push and pull of my agent wanting me to, go out for like a Disney movie, and then then she would let me go out for like this independent film, but like no TV during those like few years after that, because she wanted me to be like a movie star, and my manager at the time too, which, was nice, but like there's only a few movie stars that actually become movies, like actors that become movie stars. So, and at that time, like I wasn't like a crazy alcoholic, but I definitely loved binge drinking, and I worked like construction for my dad's company in the mornings and would audition in the afternoon, and I just I mean, I knew at that time that like I had a problem because I definitely drank more than everyone else, but like I had a higher tolerance, but I just like loved getting fucked up. Like that was really what I looked forward to like on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
And I remember like I was thinking about, earlier today like kind of what to say on the show. And I remember like whenever I didn't have to like I knew I wasn't gonna have to audition for like a few days or like a week, especially like around the holidays, and I wasn't gonna have to be on camera, then I was so happy because I knew that I could drink for like multiple days in a row and my face was gonna be puffy, but like I wasn't gonna be on camera. And like whenever I was gonna have like an audition, even like a big audition, but I was like, had like a fun weekend planned or like going to like a concert or something, but then I got an audition for like a big, studio movie the following morning. I would call my agent and manager and like try to figure out a way to push it to the following day because like obviously my priorities like weren't straight and I had this, you know, I guess like a little bit of leverage in the industry because of the movie that I had done. And I worked hard, but back then like I always knew like okay, this is the last time you're going to like party this hard before an audition. Like you'll take it seriously, and if you get the call back, then like you're not going to be hungover. And then I got the call back, and then I would just be like, okay, well, you did fine in the first audition, so
It just became a spiral.
yeah. I mean, not like a spiral completely because that was like my early 20s, but I realize, now that if I would have just like focused more on my career and like just figured out a way to like not drink on the weekends or like just kind of figured out like why I like to drink so much and kind of like just forget what was going on in my life. I probably would have been more successful at like anything I tried, but it was just a lot of at that time in my early 20s like auditioning is difficult and getting so close to so many roles. I think you kind of all actors just become like selfish in a way, and they think like it's only them. Like everyone else is successful around them, and everyone else is like booking something. So you just figure like, well, the industry like hates me, and you kind of want to like figure out a way to forget about everything. Um,
So would you say like some of the rejections and pressures that came in
yeah.
the acting industry? I mean, you know a lot about how that feels. So like I'll ask you on this and the both of you. Like, does that really take? I mean, I'm sure it takes. How much of a mental toll does that really take on you? And consistently, like if you're going down that hole where, you're drinking because you just want to get up to forget, but this is happening continually because it's really hard to book a movie, not let alone a studio movie.
Yeah, I mean, it it definitely takes its toll, and over time, like especially because like you're not like after like once that money ran out from that movie, and I was back to like working like construction in the mornings, and eventually like started taking jobs at like nightclubs, but even though you're auditioning and you're getting close to these roles, you're still like, I'm never gonna make like, is it gonna be like this forever? And I feel like it's just this kind of psychological cycle of telling yourself like, no, 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 the next one, I'm gonna book the next one. It's all gonna pay off. Like all of this is gonna be for something. But then you see like, I'm sure you see this like as you get older, like your friends that you went to high school with have like good jobs. People are making good money. Like they can actually plan to go on a vacation, but you're kind of like, I need to just save this money because I don't know when I'm gonna book the next thing. But like your vacation that you're looking forward to is booking like a role.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I kind of have like we have similar paths. I mean, I didn't act in a movie or show. Like I came out here with no experience, but I had ego to the sky
Yeah.
and confidence, and I thought my raw talent. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna blow them away when I get there. And then I fell into the nightlife and drinking and partying, and I mean, here is like there's just so many beautiful women,
Yeah.
beautiful people in general, and I just got swept up in that. And like I actually missed out on a few big opportunities myself because I drank the night before. Like one time I had a producer session, It was the third call for this Teen Nick show to be the host. And like every audition before then, I had blown them away. Like I didn't really know what I was doing. It was just they didn't. I was just unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
So then the third one comes around, and the lady, the cast director, is really like pushing for me. And of course, the night before, my friend's like, "Hey, there's like this manager agent meetup at this bar. Like we might be able to get an agent." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that sounds great." And we get there, and it turns into like, "Look at that girl, look at that girl." And next thing you know, we're all taking shots, and I black out, and I wake up the next day, and I'm like, "Oh my god, what the fuck? I have an audition today." Pounding coffee, mistake number one of that. Well, mistake number whatever of that whole process. And I get there, dude, and I just forgot all my lines. Like they were laughing hysterically. But when I left, I get a call from. She's like, "What the fuck, Danny?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm on medication. Like I was just making up any excuse except for I got fucked up last night. And she's like, "They loved you, but they think you're a bit too much of a loose cannon for a Teen Nick show."
Oh,
And
that makes sense.
and I'm like, but in retrospect, thinking now, if I would have had any semblance of fame, or if I would have gotten that show, could you imagine how much more crazy shit I would have done?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I wasn't ready
Yeah.
for that responsibility. So like all this self-sabotaging was probably lessons that I had to learn.
Yeah.
That now I don't drink. Like I barely drink. If I have anything coming up, I don't even think about alcohol, because you need to be fresh.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was in the same boat. I remember when the first time that I ever went to Coachella, I had an audition that Monday afterwards, and I tried to get out of it so many times, but my agent at the time was like, I think it was called a Dolphin's Tale, which was like a Morgan Freeman movie, and I thought was like, this is like a kid's movie, but my agent was like, it's still a studio movie
With Morgan Freeman.
with Morgan Freeman, but I just like had been planning to go to this festival for so long, and like bought a bunch of Molly and obviously like Coke and other drugs, and like just me and all my friends like had this like we were gonna like do this for this set and see this DJ, and that was obviously like more important to me because that Monday morning I told her like I'm gonna be late, and she was really mad at me, and I ended up like parting ways with her because like she didn't it sounds ridiculous, but I was like, how can you not understand that like I had something else planned for like this long, and you just like sprung this on me last minute, and like you weren't going to be flexible. And so we ended up like parting ways after that, but like in retrospect, like obviously she was trying to like manage my career, and I don't know how long she had actually been like working on getting that audition, but like it was probably like something that I might have been able to book too, because it was like one of the roles that like I could have been cast for, which was like not the super good looking like asshole jock, but like the kind of like guy that's like the best friend next door that but I at that time too, like I was like, I don't want to be in some stupid movie that's like about a dolphin, some kids movie, like what's this gonna do for my career? But
How long was that after Death Sentence was the studio film you did, right?
yeah,
How long was that after that one?
this was like 3.5, 4 years later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was like 22, I think. I booked Death Sentence when I mean, to be honest too, when I did the audition for Death Sentence, I smoked a joint before, like on the beach, because I was also like at this point where I just was going on so many auditions, like sometimes 3 times a day, and I was just not booking anything, even though I was getting callbacks, and I'm just like, man, like I don't really care about this audition, like, and so I went to the audition and smoked a joint on the beach before, and I got a call back, and I was like, okay, whatever, And then after that call back, like my agent called like 2 days later and had told me that I was gonna go like do a chemistry read with Kevin Bacon. And I was just like, wow.
Did
And
you know that Kevin Bacon was attached to that?
yeah, I knew that he was attached to that, but I just figured like like everything I went on at that point, after like living in LA for like a year and going on so many auditions, I just was like, I'm never going to book anything. So, and I was planning on going to Europe, like a little while later, and so that was like kind of my main focus. And when I booked it, I was like, I can't believe that I smoked a joint like before this audition. I really hope that like I'm going to be the same, you know, like for the
Yes.
callback, I was like, I hope that I'm going to be as good as I was.
So did you smoke a joint before you read with Kevin Bacon?
No, no, I took it. I mean, I still took acting very seriously. Like that was the only time I had ever smoked like weed before an audition. And I remember thinking like, man, I really hope that like I didn't do something when I was high that like made them want to see me again.
Right.
Uh,
So I met Stewie just like how we've met everybody else in this industry through our nightclubs. I kicked out when I worked at DBA. That's the first time I ever got to meet him, and he was just as quiet and calm as he is now. He was back then. He was a sweetheart, but I didn't really know many people. So like but me and him became really good friends really quickly, and then he actually introduced me to everybody in the festival circuit. So he owes me a lot of money in therapy because it's his fault that I'm like this, but. No, man, but it was so cool but like, dude, and like to think about it now, because like I've known him for such a long time, and back in the day, we partied like crazy when we would work. Like I had like how we all have different different groups of friends. I worked in so many places. I had different groups of work friends.
but you were actually like pretty into mental health back then, because I remember when we worked at Blind Dragon, you told me that you did a silent retreat,
Yeah.
and then you left like like an hour before it ended, and like before you're supposed to actually like
Leave.
decompress and talk to someone about
Yeah.
it. I was just like, wow, I can't believe you did that for like.
Yeah, I mean, because Stu was like one of the people, like I said, he always has the same demeanor. So like I felt comfortable around Stu, where it's like I wasn't letting people really know how badly I was hurting, but I was starting to get to the point where like, yo, I need help. So like I started opening up a little bit to people here and there, and he was one of the people that I felt safe and comfortable enough to open up to. Plus, and then we did that together, and then he got me in, but we happened to work all the Insomniac shows at the same time, and when I went downhill, he went downhill.
And like, and what I was talking about earlier about like knowing that if I'm not going to be on camera, I could drink back then. When I got offered that job, which was basically like PR and marketing. I mean, it started out basically it was just PR. Like
Yeah,
they
he didn't do,
they
like,
needed
the bottle
someone
service
to
things.
Oh, okay.
show like celebrities around and make sure that they're gonna get like whatever photo ops they need, because they kind of wanted to make Electric Daisy Carnival like a Coachella. They wanted like a fashion. They didn't really know what they wanted. But when I was offered that job, I remember thinking like, wow, I could actually have like a job with somewhat of like a salary or like a steady paycheck, and like I can just tell everyone that I'm like not going to act anymore, and I can like drink, and like if I could still like audition, because I feel like actors always tell themselves like I can still always audition, like I can always go back to it.
I have the
Uh,
perfect schedule. I work 8 till 5 a.m.
yeah,
I'll wake up the next day and do something productive.
Nope.
Yeah, okay.
No,
exactly.
no.
Fucking
Or I'll just work on the weekends, and then like it'll be so much more motivated and have more money and more time to focus on like what I came to LA for. But yeah, that was definitely like the beginning of it all. Yeah,
So let me ask you this then, because like we all had our issues during that time, and it was towards the end of your time where you finally got the help that you needed. How much of it? I mean, we were all masking at the same time, so like I think when we were going through it, I'm like, man, Stu looks like he's having a hard time, but I'm having a hard time too. So everything's okay. When did you realize like I need to get some help, or was it somebody around you that was like, yo, we need to fix this?
well, I I mean, I would love to say that I recognized that I needed to get help, but I really didn't. I mean, I knew that like I knew that I could not party as hard. Like I never really like at that time like not drinking at all didn't really seem like an option to me, and I didn't know anything about recovery or I like all I thought about people that were completely sober was that like they had been to rehab and they used to have a big problem, but I was still kind of like a pretty high functioning alcoholic like up until I think like we were still working the festivals and we could have performed better, but like I was still doing what I was supposed to do and like introducing, new stuff to the company, because I was like, I managed the influencer outreach program. Um, but it was basically like when I had to get help was because I had a seizure because I tried to stop drinking and I couldn't stop drinking. And so like alcohol and benzos, like Xanax and drugs in that class. Those are the only drugs that you can't, like, physically, you can't just stop. If you're physically addicted to alcohol or benzos and you try to stop, then you'll die. So my brother, like, after one of the festivals that we worked, my brother was like, and my family, they all said, like, you look terrible. You should just kind of like not do the next festival. And I had also, like, like a month before that at one of the festivals, I had like taken a bottle from Mikey's bar, and he got really mad
I
at
was I
me.
wasn't gonna bring that up, but
Yeah,
no,
no,
she did.
and
Yeah.
that was like the lowest point that I had of all the low points at Insomniac. Like, that was like professionally one of the lowest points.
Well, I mean, I didn't mean to embarrass him, but like I noticed the count was off, and then I was like, there's another bottle at that influencer table that I know I didn't send out, and he had it in his hand, and he had a backpack on, and I grabbed him by the back of the backpack and walked him off the deck in front of everybody, and we went to I was screaming at him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which it's like I deserved that. It was completely unprofessional, and I couldn't handle my liquor at that point too. Like, I just
Oh, yo, hold on. Sorry, not, it's kind of clicking because I remember that happened that show when we went to Orlando right after, and there was a lot of blow ups that happened at that show. But there was, I remember that was, I think Myron or somebody was like, "Yo, we got to talk to Stu," and I think that's how it got to your brother. But I'm not really exact. I don't remember exact. Really, it's a little
yeah.
fuzzy. A lot of that time for us.
Yeah, I mean, we were all, I mean, and that's one of the reasons, like, if everyone else, around me wasn't partying as hard, then
Yeah.
it wouldn't have been as acceptable for me.
Cool. It is not okay, but it's like, oh, you're in the hospitality industry. You just that's just what you do.
Right.
And
In
whatever.
Yeah,
reality, being the
Yeah,
operative word,
everyone's,
like,
everyone's like, oh, it takes a certain breed of people to do this. Yeah, crazy ones.
yeah.
Like, because anybody in their right mind wouldn't do what we do.
And people would tell us, like, everyone around me is like, man, I could never do what you do. I couldn't
Yeah.
handle that. And you kind of get this complex where you think, like, well, I am doing something that no one else can do. Like, people can't party this hard. And at that time, like, I always had a water bottle of vodka in my backpack and like tons of gum and mouthwash, because, like, my hands would start shaking if I didn't have enough alcohol in my system. And so, like, if I didn't go out the night before, like we had one of the festivals.
But the thing is, we would always go out. Like, what was going through your head mentally during those times? Like, you had to be having that inner battle. Like, those two voices had to be arguing with each other. Like, I gotta stop, but then the other one's like, I gotta keep going. Think not just the work life, but home life, friends, family. Like, what was going on mentally in your head, and how were you able to navigate that? Because I mean, bro, it's kudos to you. It seems incredibly tough.
I
I mean, it
mean,
doesn't seem it is.
honestly, like, at that time, and I think when a lot of alcoholics get to the point where they don't want to stop drinking, but they know it's a problem because they're having to hide it from everyone else. Um, but you try to find, like, heroes, or like you look for stories about other people that are like raging alcoholics and functioning alcoholics, and so you kind of just only compare yourself to them. Like, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And you see in our culture, like, that show Mad Men was like one of my favorite shows, and Don Draper's a complete alcoholic, and I used to watch episodes of Mad Men when I was, really hungover, or like trying to not drink, just like sip a little bit, like have like a couple beers for lunch to like get rid of the shakes, but like to still be productive and keep doing things and send emails and all that. But I didn't really think that I had that big of a problem, because I saw so many other people around me, like, partying is hard. And I just thought, like, okay, I can get this under control. And some days I would have it under control. Like, some days I'm like, wow, I didn't drink until like 7 p.m. today. And I didn't really have the shakes. And, like, I didn't feel like throwing up. Uh, and that
and
gave me like this false sense of accomplishment
yeah,
somehow, like temporary accomplishment. And that's kind of how I dealt with it. Like, I would, you know, or I would count my drinks. I'd buy like four or five. We were talking about this before, like airplane bottles, and I would tell myself, like, okay, I'm only gonna have 5 drinks today, and I would try to like parse it out over a certain amount of hours, and then like some days that wouldn't work because after like 5 shots over like 3 hours, I'd all of a sudden feel like I was going to throw up because I needed more alcohol. And so I'm like, fuck, okay, I just got to pound 3 shots right now and then wash my mouth out. And this would be like during lunchtime. Like I needed
Bro,
that
we
to
would
like,
have, remember Sundance? We would be waking up and throwing back bottles. We had like extra bottles of whiskey just in our room.
yeah.
And we would drink, we get up, we would drink in the morning on the car ride on the way to the event. It's 8:30 in the morning and we're about to do a press junket.
You gotta get prepared, man.
Yeah.
But for us, that's like
That's normal.
Yeah, because
it was normal. Yeah.
yeah, and because your body's, I mean, you start
crave
going
it.
through withdrawals,
Yeah.
and if you don't have it, then you can't think straight, and you're not as like jovial and talkative, and you know that if you don't act normal or what you think is normal, then people are gonna think like, oh, he's got a problem because he's hungover. He can't perform today, or he can't like act like a regular human being because he's visibly hungover. But if you have a few shots,
And like there's the addiction, yes, but then mentally I think the big thing is like, well, I have to get this done. Well, if I drink and I'm fine doing it, well, I guess that's the way to go because you don't see any other options. So you're like, it, I'm gonna just get through it. I'm gonna just keep drinking until I get through this event. Then I'll be fine and I'll take a break. And then you realize how stressful it is afterwards, and you're like, well, I need to drink again because that's gonna help me stay steady when it's doing the adverse effect.
And you're
Yeah.
producing the results that you want for the night, right? So you're like, it can't be that bad because
It's
I'm
such a
producing.
catch-22.
Yeah. I'm getting shit done. We are making money. People are happy, and you're like, well, let me reward myself. I'm gonna just keep drinking.
yeah,
Like, why? Why not? I remember when I bartended, like the days that I didn't drink, I wouldn't make as much money because I was quiet and reserved and in my thoughts, and I just wanted the night to end. But if I did have those shots, and all of a sudden I was back on and talkative and running around the bar and being happy, and I hated that. I knew that I was doing that, but I hated that it got to that point.
You needed it to survive. And like just thinking about it now, we talk about hindsight, like think about it. We would take shots before we got to work. We would take shots when we got to work. We'd have to take a 30-minute break. And I did this with you at different nightclubs. We'd walk down to the corner and either get a shot at the other bar or go to the liquor store and get the little airplane bottles, throw those back before before pre-shift. After pre-shift, take a shot. It's like I didn't really even think about that until like right now of like how many shots we took before the night even started.
Yeah, we polished off a bottle collectively.
Oh, probably. Easily.
It was just normal, dude, and it's crazy that life that we led. But we do this podcast because we want to teach people out there who are listening. This isn't the way.
No. And not only is it not the way, but it's also if you're in that, there is light because Stu is still one of the best people I know, and he's doing amazingly now and successful and producing a great show, and we're going to get to that. So I guess the biggest part where people watching that might be going through the same thing, it's how did you get help? How did it turn around? What was your mindset trying to be like, okay, I really need to change this?
well, so like I had a seizure, and my brother had to call like the ambulance, and I was taken to the hospital, and this was because I tried to stop drinking. I tried to go cold turkey, and so after like 5 days of like laying in my bed and like writhing in pain and going through like alcohol withdrawals, my body was finally like, you can't do this. And I don't remember. I mean, I blacked out, and my brother said he just heard me like screaming in my bed, and like my neck was just like completely seized up, and he called the ambulance, and I woke up like in the ambulance. And so I went to a detox, and that was like a 7-day detox center. And they told me that my liver was like that of a 70-year-old that had been drinking like for that long, for their whole life basically, but not like basically like just a very unhealthy liver.
How
Like,
long ago was this?
this
5 years
was
ago? 6 years ago?
2018. Yeah, like January 2018. So I did the 7-day, detox, and I was thinking like I don't need to go to like rehab, and so I was supposed to be sober for another, like I just told my family like I'm not going to drink, I'll figure it out, but like I'm not going to drink for a while. And then after only like a couple weeks, like my brother found a couple like airplane bottles because I was like, I can't remember what we went to like some event or did something, and I was hiding it obviously, and my brother found him, and he's like, if you're drinking airplane bottles and you're not drinking at the event, like there's a problem because you're lying to us about like our family about this, and you're lying to yourself.
You're living in your brother's house at this point
Yeah,
too.
I'm living in my brother's house, and I'm paying like rent to him, but like he's my landlord, and my brother that cares about me, and so he just said like you need to get help, and so
Your brother's such cool people.
yeah, yeah. I mean, my family has saved my life like multiple
Your
times.
mom's a sweetheart. Your whole family's super cool.
So we all looked up, like different rehabs, and found one that I could go to for a month. Um, and it was a residential facility. And my mom paid for that. And they give you like they call it like a scholarship, but they just basically give you a discount. And I think it was like I can't remember exactly how much it was, but I think it ended up being like $1,000 a week. Um, and after that, I went into a sober living for a couple months, and I did an outpatient program for 2 months. And so that basically, I mean, when you're in those, like, they're all based on, 12-step programs, and I was part of like Alcoholics Anonymous, but I went to a lot of like Narcotics Anonymous meetings as well with the guys in the house that I was living at. And I like 12-step programs, but I wasn't, I don't know, I didn't really take to it as much. And I, I from there I moved into an apartment, and I hadn't lived by myself for a long time, and I kind of wish that I would have just let myself stay at a sober living for longer back then, because I wasn't ready to move out on my own, because I started drinking again just like a few months later.
Didn't you? Oh shit! You moved out of sober living, and then a few months later, the pandemic happened.
No, no.
Oh,
So this is back in 2018,
okay.
and basically like I went to uh, a TV festival with my brother and my mom and some of the other producers, and and I was like sneaking drinks then, and I was on Lexapro, this medication that you definitely should not. It's like an antidepressant, and I just kept falling asleep everywhere, and my family knew like you know that something was going on. So after that, I basically started like, because I was part of the 12-step program, I had a sponsor. Um, I kind of, instead of going back to rehab, I just was working with him. Um, and that really did help. I wasn't following, like I was going through like the steps with him, and he ended up moving away like 6 months later. But something kind of clicked, and I just like didn't need to drink anymore. Like I wasn't, I don't know, I just didn't have the itch that I did before in the cravings. But I wasn't like, I guess, addressing the issue either. I wasn't going to therapy. I was just kind of like, okay, I don't need that anymore. And I was living alone. And I stayed sober for, the next couple years. Like, I just kind of told myself, like, no matter what, which is what they tell you in the 12-step programs, like, no matter what happens in your life, like, the only thing that's going to keep, to, like, give you the confidence that you need is to know that you didn't pick up a drink, or that, like, you didn't use again. Like, that's the most important thing. Like, if you lose everything, you lose your entire family, like, at least you have your sobriety, which, you know, doesn't sound like much if you don't have a problem. But when you do have a problem, like, it really is everything to not pick up a drink again. Um, and but then during the pandemic, um, I kind of just thought like, I've been sober for a couple years, like it's not a problem, like I could probably do it again. And I decided to go like, people were still kind of dating, not like at the like kind of towards the beginning of the pandemic, I guess. And I went on a couple dates, and I realized like, oh, this girl's like, and I had also not been dating. Like, I tried to just like cut everything off as far as like pleasure, you know,
Temptation,
like,
yeah.
yeah, temptation, pleasure. I'm like, you know what? If I'm not drinking anymore, not partying, I don't need to like go on dates, you know, and also when you are sober, going on a date is so much different than when you've been used to like talking to girls drunk or at least buzzed. And so, anyways, I went on a couple dates, and one of the dates I just realized, like, you know what? I like this girl doesn't know anyone that I know. If I if I don't like ever let her meet anyone that I know, like I can kind of live a double life. And so I ordered like a tequila cocktail, and she had a couple drinks, and I was totally fine. So I went on the second date with her, and all I could think about like for that before that second date was like what I'm gonna drink, and like, you know, if she's gonna be cool with taking shots. And then once I got to the date, we had a couple drinks, we had dinner, and then she was going to go home. And I was like, oh, we should go out. You know, I thought you wanted to go out afterwards. And she said she had to get up early. And I was just so disappointed that she didn't want to get fucked up. And I realized, like, man, I have a fucking problem. Like, this girl's like, seems like she was very happy to hang out with me, but all I can think about is like going out to a bar and getting hammered with her because I'd been like looking forward to that all day. And since she didn't want to do that, I like just stopped talking to her because I mean, I didn't like ghost her or anything. We both just kind of, I just like stopped pursuing it because if I did actually like start dating her, then she would have to tell everyone that like when we first started dating, I was drinking. So, you know, there's a lot of like mental jujitsu that goes into your head when you're an alcoholic. And then I just started drinking again, like regularly for the next month, like having a couple beers after work, and everything was fine. And then about a month after that, I was back to like drinking a bottle a day of like hard liquor. And yeah, so that kind of brings us up to like 2021. And I went back to rehab, a 3 month like facility that the state pays for, because I couldn't really afford to, you know, put myself through an expensive one. And also, I just realized, like, you know what? If you want to get this right, like, don't go to a nice rehab. Like, you need to punish yourself, and you need to go to like one that you're with people that don't have the luxury of wealthy family members, or, you know, kind of everyone that's like actually hit rock bottom. Everyone that and people that are at, you know, the facilities that the state pays for, it's a minimum of like 3 months. You have to finish that if you want them to pay for it. Um, but yeah, that that helped me a lot.
Brother, thank you so much for sharing that, man. Like, it takes a lot of courage and vulnerability to be so open about it, and we're extremely grateful because I think there are people out there that are going to have a lot of these issues will maybe feel more open to talking about. So again, we really applaud you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
So how long you been sober now for?
Since October of 2021, that's when I went into the 3 month facility. And then I lived at a sober living for 8 months after that. So, you know, like for anyone that is struggling, or, you know, that has been to rehab before and, you know, thinks that that it didn't help them, like I really think that staying in the sober living, after I, you know, went to rehab this last time, even though like it killed me to do it as, you know, a 30, well, I'm 35 now, but like I was 34 then, and like, you know, I felt like a complete failure. Like I'm living in a house with, you know, 8 other guys, and I was still working and, you know, doing everything else, but I had an 11 o'clock curfew on weekends and 10:30 during the week. But it just made me like, just gave me this like structure that I never really thought that I needed, but I think I did need it, you know, to kind of like reset everything and like reprogram my brain. Um, and you realize that like you don't really need much when you live like that for that long. You're like, wow, and everything's in storage. I've had like this, basically been wearing the same clothes, like same 7 shirts for the last like year because I don't want to buy new clothes, um, and like have to dig way back in storage. So it's humbling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Structure is something that we all could have used back in the day.
Yeah.
Structure
It
is
was
something
just
I could still
it was
use.
literally a free for all, right?
Yeah.
We were just figuring it out.
I mean, honestly, we're still figuring out. Like,
We're still figuring it out, but now I think we do have a little more.
we have a little bit more structure, which is definitely,
Yeah.
necessary for us.
And I think our structure is all those experiences that we had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We
Yeah.
know not to break that structure down by falling back into those
Yeah.
But
those vices and those
but
negative.
but if you do, it's okay. Like, it's gonna happen every once in a while. Life is hard. Like you said, you broke your sobriety, but that was during the pandemic. Look how much was going on. I knew so many other people that told me the same thing, that it just got so hard they broke their sobriety, and
Hmm.
we're human beings. Like, it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, but when you work on it enough, and you have enough respect for yourself, you pick yourself up and you continue to push forward. So now you're producing a show
Yeah.
that was just on Hulu this past season.
Yeah, it was on Hulu for during the pandemic. We shot the first season back in 2018, and we edited it together. It's 8 episodes, and we were lucky because when the pandemic started, all production shut down, and we had like a finished product. Like I started off as just like a production assistant on the show. Like I just, told my brother like I'll do whatever because I wasn't working at Insomniac anymore, and that was in 2018 when I was like newly, sober. And I worked really hard, and they needed a lot of help because it was a low budget production, so they offered me a co-producer role with, no money. And we just did everything, it was a super low budget thing. So my brother and Steven, the other creator, they edited the whole first season, just the two of them, and we got a license deal with Hulu, just like basically what covered the production cost of the first season, and we got some other like territories overseas, um, and that gave us like we had an investor that came in to help us with post production, and because we had made all of our money back, he agreed to finance the second season, basically just like the same budget. So right now, currently, we're editing the second season. We're in post, and our sales agents are going to try to package both seasons together, and try to get another license deal with a streamer again. So yeah, it's been, I've learned like just like when I was, in my early 20s. I think if we would have had, immediate success with the show with the first season, if we would have sold it outright like we were trying to, then when I was a producer, I might have like gotten fired by like relapsing and, not performing as well if we would have had like a big production deal. But us like doing it grassroots level, I think just helped all of us like understand more about the industry, but like understand like what we can do with small budgets. And I've learned so much in the last like few years just about, writing and TV production in general, but like just knowing that like I don't need Adderall, or I don't, like I can still do these things that I used to think like, oh my God, like I need to get some Adderall and have like 2 shots just to feel like I can go talk in this meeting.
Yeah.
And now I feel like I don't need that. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
It's kind of like the date. Now you can go on a date without.
Yeah, I'm still
it's
working
just
on
like a
that.
metaphor for life.
Yeah.
But I think
That-
that. Good.
No, I think that's great, and you kind of find your purpose, and you see like the amazing things that you could do without those vices, and
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
applaud you for coming out of that.
And now it works out. You found your purpose. I know you love producing and writing. You're working with your brother and one of your close friends, so like that's got to be a really positive environment for you and supportive environment for you to be in.
Mhm.
I know how much they love you and care about you. So like it seems just going to show what we want this podcast to show is like you can struggle and have a hard time, but that doesn't mean that you can't find your way and that something beautiful can't come from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I feel like I don't know if you guys feel this way too, but like when I was younger and I thought I shouldn't go out tonight, then I shouldn't have gone out that night. Like
Oh, yeah.
what I would
Now
tell
I
kids
don't.
like in their early 20s now, like if you have an amazing opportunity or like you're pursuing this, creative passion, like if you think it's a bad idea to go out, like don't go out.
Yeah.
Find something else to do productive because that would have helped so our
Right.
lives when we were younger a
Right.
lot.
And that's always going to be there.
Always.
That's
There's
always gonna be
always
there.
going to be another party. There's always going to be something else
Yes.
to do. Like you're not going to miss out.
Your
So,
career and opportunities
yeah.
will not always be there.
So again, we appreciate you being so open and vulnerable. So I just got two questions for you before we get you out of here. Is going through those trials and tribulations, what is the one key thing that you've learned that is helping you continue to stay sober, and what's the one thing you're the most grateful for as as you're coming out in this positive lifestyle now?
Thing that I've learned um, is that like things change, like negative feelings change, like the uncomfortable feelings that you have every day, or like the negative things that happen to you put you in this mindset where you think that I used to think like, oh, I need a drink to forget about this. Like that feeling's gonna pass. And I still have a hard time reminding myself that when I feel like I've failed or I'm embarrassed about something, like that's something I have to keep reminding myself, like, okay, this feeling's gonna pass. Like no matter how, you know, depressed I am right now about this situation, like in a few hours, like everything could be different. So that's the thing that I try to, remind myself every day, and that I've learned is just that's like change is the only constant. Um, and what was it?
What you're grateful for?
Oh, I'm just grateful to be alive. To be honest, I mean, I could have died from those seizures if I wouldn't have gotten help, and many other times in my life I probably could have died too. So I'm just grateful to be alive, and to have a family that cares about me, and yeah.
Amen to that, man. Thank you for all that you shared, and
Your honesty, your vulnerability,
man.
your courage, man. Thank you. Thank you for being a good friend. I'm extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm grateful for
Love
you.
you, Mikey.
Love you too. Love you too, Danny.
I love you too, man. See, he's very lovable.
He's so. I told you, it's a safe space.
He's got kind eyes.
Kind eyes. He's such a softie. We love him to death.
It's like looking at Zach Morris for the first time. Remember that
And
for
on
season-
that note, we'll see you next time on the cast. We're out. Peace.